federal judge has temporarily blocked the Biden administration's plan to grant legal status to undocumented immigrant spouses of American citizens. The policy could offer an easier legal pathway to citizenship for about 500,000 people. 16 Republican-led states sued the Biden administration last week to block the government from approving applications, arguing the president needs congressional approval to implement such a policy. A Trump-appointed judge sided with those states Monday, temporarily pausing the process for thousands of migrant spouses while the district court considers the challenge. CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins me now. Camilo, remind us again of the administration policy and why Biden was pushing for it.
Hi, John. This is one of the major immigration actions that President Biden took in June. As you know, President Biden issued an executive order that has severely curtailed access to the U.S. asylum system along the U.S.-Mexico border, and that officials have credited for a sharp drop in illegal border crossings. But he also issued an executive order also in June that created this program that allows the unauthorized immigrant spouses of American citizens to apply for temporary legal status in the U.S. But perhaps more importantly, John, it also grants them a more streamlined process to get permanent residency and eventually, after a few years, U.S. citizenship under that sponsorship by their U.S. citizen spouse. Right now, John, anyone who marries a U.S. citizen, an immigrant who marries a U.S. citizen, is generally eligible to get a green card, but people who have entered the country illegally, including across the U.S.-Mexico border, usually have to go back to their home country and come back to the U.S. legally to get that green card. But in that process, they can actually trigger a 10 or 3-year ban from the U.S. because they have been here in the U.S. illegally for some time. That is a dilemma that is created by U.S. laws dating back to the 1990s. And so this program was designed to prevent that from happening and to allow these families to get permanent legal status without having to leave the country and potentially facing separation. And that is the Biden administration's argument, its main argument at least, for this policy, that it promotes family unity. But as you underscored, Texas and other Republican-controlled states are saying that this program rewards illegal immigration because it benefits people who are in the country illegally. And they also believe that the humanitarian parole authority that the administration is citing to justify this program does not allow the president to create a categorical class-based program for hundreds of thousands of people who are in the country without legal status, John.
And so then, briefly, what happens now in this case?
Well, it's very important to note, John, that the judge in this case did not rule on the merits of the legal arguments presented by Texas and the other Republican-led states. Instead, he issued an administrative pause that prevents the Department of Homeland Security from approving any new applications under this policy for the time being, for at least 2 weeks, 14 days. But he did suggest in his order, John, that he is likely to extend that pause on the policy through at least October. So there is a real possibility that this policy could be blocked through the election for the time being. New applicants can submit their applications, but the government is now barred from approving any cases. And so that is the status quo that the judge is preserving.
Let me ask you another item. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has been conducting raids on the homes of members of a Latino civil rights group, LULAC. He says it's part of an investigation into potential voter fraud and non-citizens registering to vote. He hasn't yet provided any evidence that any of that is happening. LULAC, for its part, says the raids are an attempt at voter suppression to intimidate Latino voters. Remind us again about the criticality of the Latino vote and why these groups exist to help mobilize Latino voters.
Well, John, what I can tell you is that the Latino and Hispanic vote will be absolutely crucial and key in this election in November for president. They right now make up about 15% of the electorate overall. They are 36 million strong, and that is the largest non-white minority voting bloc in the U.S. That is compared to 7% of the electorate back in 2000. So the number of Latinos becoming eligible to vote because of naturalization or because they were born here to immigrant parents has increased sharply over the past few years. But it is also important to note, John, that they are also very much up for grabs in this election. Yes, in the past elections, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and President Biden have won a majority of the Latino vote in the U.S., but that support has eroded, and former President Donald Trump believes that on issues like immigration and the economy, he can make even more inroads with the Latino community. So it is very much up for grabs.
Camilo Montoya-Galvez, thank you.